We're talking about something very interesting today, which is impact. A lot of us keep saying we want to make impact. A lot of us keep saying that we want to fulfill purpose, but then we look for impact and purpose in the big things and in the big places. But today we'll be hearing from Auntie Uju and myself. Why are you laughing?
Auntie Uju. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I
You make
call
you
you.
very
So
old.
I will keep calling you that. So we'll be hearing from her today and myself because we are in the same space. I do a lot of charity work, I do a lot of social impact work, and she does the same as well. So, can you please introduce yourself? Let's meet you. Tell us what you do.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today, Tolu. My name is Uju Aderemi, and by the grace of God, I am first and foremost, I'm grateful to be a child of God and the first daughter of my parents. And I am married to 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗶 Aderemi, and we have three children. My last is my biological child, Folua, and I'm really grateful to God for making me a biological mother as well as a half mother and a stepmother. You understand later. And I work as a director of partnership for impact at one of the largest children's international non-governmental organizations with presence in over 110 countries. It's been in existence for over 100 years. I've been in that post for 4 years now. And previous to that, I was in a similar position in Care International, another international non-governmental organization. And previous to that, I was in the sector. I'm in the international non-governmental organization, so basically the development sector. And I've been there for 20 years now. And prior to that, I was in the private sector. But my role in the private sector was very close to what a lot of people would call is ESG now, but it was called CSR, CSR being corporate social responsibility at the time. And prior to that, I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and a lot of the work that I did was community-based as well. So that's my journey, but currently I'm firmly in the social impact space, non-governmental organization space, specifically international development sector.
Thank you. So this is going to be very, very conversational. So growing up, I used to, you're basically living my dream. Because growing up, I used to say to myself, oh, I want to work in UNICEF. Oh, I want to work in an INGO. That has always been my dream. But then, you know how you have a dream and then God takes you through a path, not necessarily exactly a copy of what you really wanted, but then you're not far from it. But then that has always been my dream. So well done for the amazing work you do. And yeah, let's get into it. What does philanthropy mean to you? And we're going somewhere with that question.
So, thank you. Thanks, Tolu. Well, for me, philanthropy means any opportunity where you're able to give something, give of yourself, give financially, give gifting kind, as it's called, or just give a space, a connection, facilitating a connection. Philanthropy, for want of a better word, just means being able to give out of something that you have. And you can do that in various ways. You have, when I came on, I heard you talking about how your parents would have people in living with you. That is giving in whatever form it is. It's giving of their space, it's giving of themselves because they also had to, as it were, pass on values to these people who were living with you. And but most of us associate philanthropy with what you may call it high net worth individual, people who give huge sums of money, like the Bill Gates and the Fords.
Mhm.
And yeah, definitely they're philanthropists, but I just wanted to bring it down to a level where everybody can relate to. So long as you're able to give something out of what you have, that is philanthropy.
Thank you very much. So a lot of people also, so now everything is structured. So we have structured giving and we have unstructured giving. So structured giving is you probably have a charity or an NGO or a community interest company, a CIC, and then it's structured. So people that don't do structured giving, so someone comes to you and then the person is asking you for something, and you give them, it doesn't make you less than a giver, or it doesn't make you less a giver than someone who probably has a charity. I just got to put that there. So now let's talk about your journey. I think I've heard part of your story and what influenced you in a way. So tell us where your giving journey started or how it started. Have you always been someone who, have you always known yourself to be that person who wanted to be a philanthropist or maybe a social entrepreneur, or did you always see yourself to want to work within the space that you're working in now or do the things you're currently doing?
Right. Okay. So that's really interesting. Thank you. You know, that question you asked, it made me really think because we didn't, contrary to what people think, we didn't really rehearse this as much as we should have. Well, thanks, Tolu. The when you said, have you always seen yourself as a giver? It just struck me that no, I was the first daughter in an Igbo family where my parents were. My dad was is not was because he's alive still, is a retired university professor. And so we were very privileged to live in a university environment in the days where universities were considered ivory towers. And as a consequence of that, we had a lot of relatives come live with us. I mean, it didn't really start as people who would, but the point I'm trying to make is at a stage, all I wanted was to be an only child. There were just so many people in the house. So no, I don't think I consider myself. I don't think I would have considered myself a giver for one. Excuse me, I'm
Okay.
just recovering from a cough. I don't think I would have considered myself a giver in any way whatsoever. But it's so funny how what we I think psychologists call it the social constructs around us help shape and form us. I grew up in, my mom was the last daughter, but her mother was the first wife, and she couldn't have boys. My grandmom couldn't have boys or didn't have boys biologically. So she married two other women for her husband so that he could have boys for the Igbo family
Mm.
when I was growing up. Igbo is my tribe is Igbo in the southeast part of Nigeria. And so there's a thing about having male children. And therefore, to solidify for a woman at the time to solidify her place in her husband's home, she had to leave someone who would have, what's the word, bear who would carry on the name, the legacy, as it were, of her husband. And so my grandmother couldn't have she didn't have male children, so she married two other kids. But my mom was her last daughter, and she used my mom as it were as basically a male child, the one who went to school, the one who was very much more exposed. But she was wealthy, and she was living in the northern part of Nigeria. So during the war, they all had to come back to the east during the Nigeria war that happened between 1967 and 1970. That was the first time they left the northern part of Nigeria to go back to the southeast, which is where they came from. And there were so many children who were losing parents as a result of their parents being conscripted to the war to fight, as it were. And so my grandmother had this thing of taking most of these children into her home, either temporarily, or for some of them whose parents didn't come back. Whose fathers couldn't come back and their mothers couldn't cope. It became a thing. And so I was born into that setting. We would often go to visit my grandmom, and there were so many children there. Some would come and go, some would just come and eat and go because she was quite wealthy at the time. And so I grew up with that construct around me, understanding that you opened up your home to other people who were less privileged or who had less than you did, and you could offer them either a home, a meal, or a hug, as I often saw my grandmom doing. And then when we were living in a university campus, as I said, and then my mom would have people come live with us, not just close relatives. I had my cousins who were raised like my sisters. My mom's sister died quite young and she took her kids. That's not the same as other people, those ones were my sisters. They're not the same. But we had quite a few people living with us as well. So all of that helped form my impression about what's the word? It helped build my understanding of social capital. They enriched us quite a lot. Having children around was quite interesting. We didn't need to go out. We didn't need to have neighbors' children come out and play with us. We could form, a playground all by ourselves. So that was really great. And so you would say, in a sense, my mother continued to do that. But before she passed, after a while, my grandmom took that informal setting of taking children into her home and made it formal by building a motherless babies home and handing that over to the government. And prior to that time, she had already started working as a volunteer with the British Red Cross, which eventually became the Nigerian Red Cross. And so that motherless babies home, which she built or she helped build, still stands, and it's still in my village in Nigeria. So that, I would say, is what sowed the seeds of what it was to. I didn't even see it as charitable giving. What I saw it as was that's just normal. But when it was formalized and she handed it over to the government, and Monica, I know I sent you very late a picture of her. She even got a title in the village called Ide Red Cross. Everybody knew her as Mama Red Cross. And when she died, the governor and everyone came around. But the point I was trying to make is that for herself was something she was giving out of what she had. It wasn't something that it wasn't something that was, what's the word? It wasn't something that she thought about, in a sense, as in formalizing it. And subsequently, my mom came to the UK to do a PhD, I think it was. She ended up doing a master's, and somewhere along the line, she observed that there were quite a lot of immigrant community where she lived in Hackney, and a lot of the mothers or the women, when they sent their children to school, they weren't coping with the system. And so she was teaching in Hackney Community College. Off the back of that, she set up an after school club that was catering to these women, the mothers of the women who weren't able to work, some who couldn't speak English, just to help them um, integrate into the community. And as a spin-off of that, she eventually left her job to set up Grace Women's community organization. And eventually that became her full-time job as well. She became a community what advocate, accessing funds from the government to set up activities just not only for the women but also for their children. I came to do my master's at that time. I had been involved, as I said, in the banks in Nigeria where I was working. I was working in external relations, external communications, and I was running the CSR initiative of the bank where I was working. And so I would say that fortuitously, I came at a time when I observed what my mom was doing. I came to do an MBA. Like you, I wanted to work for UNICEF. And I didn't want to start from the beginning. I always knew at some point, having worked in the bank and having worked when I was working in GSK in the community mobilization or community initiatives, I began to feel this hunger, and I realized that there's something here. And when I came to know Christ around that space as well, I understood that one of my gifts was helps. When we talked about ministerial gifts or gifts to the body, it was in helps. And I just couldn't understand how I could marry my purpose and what I had been trained to do. And I started praying, and it became very clear to me at a stage that this is what I wanted to do, and hence the longing to work for UNICEF. Talked to a couple of my friends who work for UNICEF, and I realized that I needed to have a master's in public health if I was going to deploy my health training and a lot of the experience I had. So I came to the UK to do that. Was me in the UK coming to after years of postponing it because, really, I wasn't married at the time. And I was so sure that my husband was in Nigeria. So each year I'd applied to do a master's degree. I'm like, okay, wait, until we married, each year I would apply to do a master's degree. After a while, it became very clear to me that, it's time for you to go and do what God had called you to do because I'd been delaying it. But I didn't want to start at the bottom. And so I felt that it was necessary to do this master's in public health and a master's in an MBA in public policy, so that I would, as it were, get into mid-level management. And so coming here and then seeing my mom when I was doing my master's running those community things, it kind of clicked for me. And I realized that I wanted to work with women and children. And God so kind. While I was doing my master's in public health, there was a research position. A friend of mine she wasn't really my friend, she was my classmate in my international development faculty, University of Birmingham. And she'd heard me talk a lot about this. And she thought one day, she said to me, Uju, I saw this thing. It's a research position in Nigeria. It's a health intervention for children. I think that it's sort of what you might be interested in. And at that time, I was looking for a topic for my dissertation. And so it clicked. And that is how God just put me in this space. He got me that job that took me to Nigeria. And that was the start of my journey where God really positioned me. So oftentimes, if I have a bad day at work or I have a bad season, like I kind of did last year at work, I'm always reminded that I cried out to the Lord. I said to Him, I wanted a job that would help me realize these dreams, work in international development, be able to travel, but still be very connected to my root in Nigeria. And obviously, when I came, I told Him that I would go back and set up an NGO. But when I finished, I found out that there's so many NGOs. What we should think about is how do we collaborate better rather than setting up a new one. And so that's also been the other trajectory of my work. In my work, a huge amount of my time is spent looking for opportunities to partner with other organizations so that the sum of the whole is definitely greater than each individual parts. And there you have it. I've been so privileged to go to almost all parts of the world. I have done global program director roles in three organizations now, and it's been absolutely fantastic. It's not been easy. It's been humbling. It's been eye-opening. It's reminded me of the privilege that I have. And it has really made me appreciate what is rich in people's different cultures and people's heart of generosity in different spaces. Yeah. So let me stop there. I think I've gone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think people should just clap because you said a lot of things when you spoke, and you know how this scripture came alive in my head. A wise or a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. A
Yeah.
lot of times when we hear that scripture, we think it's just money, we think it's wealth. Well, from your journey, from your story, three generations, how it has been passed on, and you're still carrying the touch, you're still bearing the touch, you're going on. And it's amazing. And I would love to say it here to everyone. Let's be very, very intentional about our actions because your children will pick it up. So whether it's good or not too good, at the end of the day, you find out that you're influencing generations yet on. That's Amazing. Well done. Well done. Well
I
done.
agree with you, Tolu, and 100%. And it's not about and it's not about well done. I think for me, oftentimes when people look at when people hear what I do and they're like, "Oh, Uju, well done," I feel a bit. I get paid to do my work. Does that make sense? So I get rewarded financially to do the work that I do. But I'm really, really privileged to be able to do that. So I think I'm the one who um oftentimes when people say, well done for what you do, I'm like, I actually get paid for my work, so it's the people who don't. But yes, it is really I think I'm privileged. And I say that to I remember I had a new boss the other day and he was like, what are you saying? I said, no, honestly, I am privileged to work in my purpose. And I said to him, I'm also meeting is being recorded.
Tolulope, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I think something happened to her network. But she mentioned something about collaboration. She's back. Can we? Oh, I keep forgetting that I need to unmute her. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I hope you can hear me now. Thank you.
Yes.
It was very uncomfortable
Um,
talking, holding my phone. My computer is back on. Thank you so much.
okay. Yeah, I was talking about collaboration, something you mentioned about collaboration. A lot of people, so I have something called the Impact Lounge. I keep saying the Charity Lounge. But one of the reasons I set it up, I just thought there's a lot of competition, even in the social impact space. And ideally, it shouldn't be that way. We have a common goal, and that's to make the world a better place. That shouldn't be competitive. So we should all co-create. If I do something that is great, or I see someone who does something similar, I should be able to come to you to say, how can we work together to make a ripple effect, to make things better, rather than, oh yeah, let's go and do our own. Let's come together, let's keep collaborating, and then let's keep making the world a better place. So my next question to you, Andrew, is have you ever questioned your path? Because a lot of times we're on this journey of impact or of purpose, fulfilling purpose, and then we have setbacks, whether in your personal journey or even at work, whatever it is. Have you ever experienced something that has made you question this path? Yes, the successes are there, but then have you ever stopped to think, you know what, am I on the right track?
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, for my one, I'm always very hesitant because I said purpose meets faith. Yes, 100%. But it's also, don't forget, a job, right? So not everyone who works in the sector is there as a result of their faith. Faith drove me into the sector, yes, but it's a choice. And as I said, I get rewarded for it. And so everyone has a bad day in the office. And it just also, and don't forget, it's a business at the end of the day. I do work for a business. It is a business that whose business is making sure that people's life chances are improved, particularly for children. I currently work for a a child rights based non governmental organization. But at the end of the day, they have to make business decisions. And some of those business decisions don't go well with me. So, yes, we do have them. And also, the second thing is the people that you work with. Human beings are human beings. You have a good boss, you have a bad boss. You have a good colleague, you have a bad colleague. Those things all work. And then also, by extension, the partners that we work with, there's so many times and there's so many policies. If some people who follow the news, the UK's official development assistance, which is the amount of money that the UK government puts aside every year to support low and medium income countries, mostly low income countries. They announced that a couple of days ago, and there were lots of cuts. There were lots of cuts, and the language was very different. It's gone from we are supporting people to we're investing, we're co-working with these countries as partners when we know that,
a lot of it is words. So the terms are changing. And on that day, I remember feeling very. So, yes, the bottom line is that we have bad days as a result of business decisions, as a result of the policy, things that happen in the external environment. Last year, a lot of people who follow the sector know that there is a lot of ripple effect as a result of the US government announcement on retraction to aid. By the way, the US government is the largest, by far, the largest donor for money for emergency humanitarian and development in the world globally. And their announcement last year to cut back on that and put America first set off a spiral of events that some good, but mostly really harmful in the sector. Not so much as because of their decision, which is theirs, their sovereign nation, they decide what they want to do with their money, but it was how quickly and how unexpected it was that didn't allow space for some of the programs, life-saving programs that their money supports, for alternative means of supporting those programs to be developed before they were withdrawn. So, yes, last year was a very difficult year, and last year really made me question. And yeah, sometimes when I talk to my son and I lament about not having money for a particular thing, he would say to me, "But mom, with all your degrees, why don't you go back into the private sector, make money? You can still give, mom. You can still give." So, and so I just say that to laugh and say, yes, there's some days, there are people that you work with, and then also the lens that you come at things in trying to encourage collaboration, which is part of my core role, and part of our core tenets, how we work. It's amazing how not a lot of people have the same shared vision, that if we collaborate with the scarce resources that's available, we can do a lot more together. People say that, people don't often do that. So I will leave you with those three areas in how I get frustrated some more. But people are people. Businesses have to be in business, right? So there are regulatory requirements that are needed, and then there are decisions that are external to the organizations and that we don't have any control about, and do set up as my pastor would say, orchestrate a series of events that are not often beneficial to the people that we are trying to serve. So, yeah, those areas.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. So I'll do a temperature check to know the people that we have in the room. You said something. You said you get paid for what you do. It's a job. You love it, you enjoy it, but then you get paid, so you have to do it anyway. There's some
It's a
people,
choice. It's
it's a
still a
choice.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some people who don't get paid for it. It's just purpose. It's just, and I'll use myself as an example. You know,
Exactly.
I do this year in, year out. I don't get paid for it. There are so many people who just give. They don't get anything. The theme for the International Women's Day for this
Give
month
to gain.
is give to gain. So in their own case, or in our own case, it's not like we're necessarily gaining something physical, whether payment in salary or something. Maybe you're gaining fulfillment from it. How do they navigate discouragement? In your own case, it's institutional,
Uh-huh.
the aid court and all that. And again, it doesn't even have to be monetary. And again, I'll use myself as an example. I had three second trimester miscarriages,
Yeah.
and my charity reaches out to children. And I had a lot of people even question my own path for me, saying, this thing shouldn't be happening to you. You that you always take care of other people's children. So when people find themselves in that space where they're constantly given something, and then they have experiences of life, you know, come at them, how do you then encourage them to keep going?
Tolu, can I ask you that question? because you said something really pertinent. You don't get paid for what you do, and you also have had, like you said, people said to you, this shouldn't be happening to you. Can you share with us, because this is meant to be a conversation, what keeps you going? So I'm putting that question to you because I think that you stand a
Okay.
better.
Okay. I think it's it's an assignment. It's purpose for me. And even when I have those experiences or I have setbacks in areas, whether it's personal or even it's resources, I just feel it's an assignment from God, and God just comes through for me, you know. And one thing I learned on the journey of having kids and being, in quotes, dealt with in that area was just you get tested the most in the area of your assignment. So are you going to give up or are you going to keep going? And an example that comes to mind is the story of not David, Joseph in the Bible. Joseph saw a lot, he experienced a lot of things, but then on his journey, he was learning and getting equipped for where God was taking him to. So at the end, when he came out at the end, it didn't matter what had happened to him because he came out as gold, he came out refined. So I would say that if you're experiencing setbacks, just go back and ask, one, is your motive right? Because some people do charitable work for different reasons, you know. Check your motive. If it's right, keep going. And I say if it has to do with finances, I keep saying that if it is God's will, it is his will. And many times when I'm almost stuck, when it comes to money, God comes through. And that keeps telling me that it is not your work, it is God's work. You're a vessel. If you refuse to be used, God will use someone else. So when those things drop in your head, just keep going. Faith. Step out in faith and go. If it's not God's will, it won't work out your own way. It will always work out God's way. So that's my own encouragement to anyone who is questioning their path, whether you're going through a rough path and you're like, okay, this thing I'm doing, you know, why am I even doing it in the first place? Just check that your motive is right. Check that you and God, you're on the same page in that regard. That's my response.
Thank you. That was really good. And that's from somebody who doesn't get paid for their work, you know. So thanks. I wanted to draw out that distinction because I think it's important. When we were thinking through International Women's Day at work, you know, one thing that struck me is people like you. Last week, you did have an impact lounge, you know, session that you organized, and I thought it was so great. What it did was really speaking to the International Women's Day theme for this year, Give to Gain, because it's emphasized the power of support, reciprocity. I know for sure that when people give generously, there are more opportunities and support for other people. And giving is not subtraction. Giving is basically intentional multiplication, as they say, because when we all thrive, we all rise. And that's the power of collaboration. That's the power of whether you're giving through donations, which is very, very well recognized, whether you're giving through knowledge, sharing knowledge and resources that you have, giving visibility to people, or advocating for something, educating or training people, whatever you're contributing to. When we give collectively together, you know, we have a more supportive environment and people are better able to thrive. So yeah, that's what I think when we talk about this whole give to gain. When you give your time, the ripple effect of the time that you have poured out to people sometimes is not quantifiable because it's multiplied. You know, when you it's like sowing a seed and watering it. Other people will have times along the path to come alongside that seed you've sown, and it will be worth it, and the person will begin to thrive. So for me, giving is not something that I can stop doing. I suppose is now Some people say it's in my DNA. I don't know. This is just how I am. And so many times when my husband says the same thing, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, but I have to. And we all recognize that, because you know that this is something that will bear fruit somewhere along the line. And I've been privileged to see this as well. When I go to communities, and when people often say to me, I don't know where to start, I say, start with what you have, and start with who is around you, your friends, your community. It always makes a difference. And Mother Teresa is one of my inspirations. Of course, she's Mother Teresa, so she has to be my inspiration. But one of the things that she said that resonates so well with me is never underestimate what a drop can do, what a group of people collectively can achieve. It is the sea, the ocean that we see. They're drops of water collected, right? And so any small thing that you do contributes. And so these days, I don't feel that I have to go big or go large or go home. No, I give what I have and I start from where I am. And that's what I encourage people to do.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Aderemi. So I started a conversation recently, and it had to do with head versus heart.
Mm.
So when I started, and for many years, would want to do everything. I just didn't want to
Mhm.
see anyone unhappy. I just didn't want to see anyone hungry. I didn't want to see anybody on the streets. And
Mhm.
one day I had a dream. You're not Jesus. You really can't save the world. You can only do what you have the capacity to do. And I think as I continued my growth journey, I found that head and heart should be at play even in this space. Before, for me, it was just heart. And that way, for many years, there was no structure to what I was doing.
Mhm.
I was just giving, giving, giving. I gave my school fees. I was just giving. But these people would keep coming back because there's no structure to what you're doing. And then I started thinking, does head have a place in all of this? And my answer to that, yes, head has a place, because if you then use your head brings structure to what your heart does. And then you're able to scale what you're doing. So if your heart is at work, you find out you're giving people food every day, food, 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 and they rely on you for that food supply every time. So they don't get to do any other thing. But if you then put the head in, which is structure, you find
Mhm.
that you can even equip those people so that they can feed themselves and even feed other people. So tell me what you feel about the concept of head versus heart.
So that's my word for it is that you want to, how do they say, but first off, let me say thank you, Tolu. Your story always inspires me. I always feel that. And that's why whenever you call, I come jumping. If there were a lot more people like you who start with what you have, it will make a huge difference to our communities. Let me say something about what you said. Maybe I may not answer your question directly, but when you talk about head versus heart, for me, it represents authenticity versus adaptability. So you're really authentic and you really have a big heart and you really want to make a difference. But even Bill Gates, with all the money he has, is not able to make the sort of what's the word? The sort of difference that can bring the world to the place where he wants to, and he recognizes that, which is why he's quite a huge proponent of collaboration, right? So he works with a lot of money from other rich people, and those are the people who understand collaboration, who and I think I'll speak to Lady's question later. She talks about shared vision and trust essential. So Warren Buffett obviously trusts Bill Gates, and obviously they have areas where their vision align, so that he could give the money that he wanted to use, and he could have set up another big machinery. But why set that up when there's already an existing machinery? And so a lot of Warren Buffett's money goes to Bill Gates Foundation, so that together they can make a lot more impact. So coming back to your question about heart versus head, authenticity versus adaptability. When you started, you realized that I'm not going to be able to do all of this. Even if you gave away all your school fees, there's only a finite amount of people that you can touch, right? And so you had to step back and take a decision. Who am I going to reach, and how am I going to reach that based on the resource that I have? And that's the thing that often overwhelms people. The needs is so much. So people often get overwhelmed by, oh, there's so much to do. I always say, one, where does your heart really want to make a difference? Where's your skill set? Where do you want to intervene? Because across the whole spectrum of life, there's spaces where you can make a difference. The most important thing is where you're going to be most fulfilled, making a difference, and how. What are the skill sets you have? What is in your hand? And then find a way to plug it into that whole vast ecosystem, right? Even for my huge organization, I work for an organization, our turnover is 2.7 billion a year. We don't even intervene in every area that affects children. So we've chosen we call them three breakthrough areas that we feel that when we intervene consistently, we can make a difference in children's lives. So that's health, 0 to 5 years. That's education, and it's not just, we started out trying to reach everybody out of school, in school, and all of that. But we've now been able to articulate and streamline where we will make intervention based on the expertise that we have as an organization. And we try not to deviate from there because, as you know, we can't even, with all the money we have, solve all the out of school. Nigeria is the country with the largest out of school girls, out of school people. We can't even address all of that with all the money that we have. So the fact is that you have to find where you are best placed. What are the skill sets you have? What expertise you have? What resources do you have? Where can it get a long way, right? So and then play in that space and find other people along that ecosystem that you can support the work they do through your work. Could be school feeding program. Is there a school? Is there a health intervention in the school? What area, what kind of feeding, what age group, right? And it goes on and on. So yeah, that's what I would say about heart versus head. At some point, you're not, I don't know who the richest man in the world is, but even the richest man in the world alone is not able to make a difference himself. So it's being able to identify where you can where your money, your resource, your expertise, your connection can make the most intervention, and just focus there. You will see impact there, and then you'll be a lot more fulfilled in that space than trying to scatter what you have everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's gold right there. Thank you very much. Please, if you have any questions, put in the chat so that Mrs. Aderemi can attend to the questions. I want us to go back.
The only one I saw was Laide's question. And
yeah, I was just going to touch on it. Yeah. So I know you mentioned it when you were speaking earlier. So I'm assuming a lot of us are Christians. We believe in God. And what she said about shared vision and trust, and the fact that it's essential to collaborate. So let's say you want to set up a charity or foundation, and then this organization reaches out to you and they're preaching abortion, but they have the money, they have the funds. Collaboration is key. That's one example. Example two is these people come to you, they have the money. What they do is very, very aligned with what you do, but then they promise to give you $10 million. But out of the $10 million, you have to give $3 million back to a pot. How do people navigate situations like this?
That's really interesting. So that's a question for me. So I can cop out and say 100% because I work for an organization. We already have our values, and we have and one of those values, number one, to respond to your second question, is a no-go area. it doesn't even work and it doesn't happen, right? In the first one, your first question, we are non-religious, what's the word? We're neutral. Neutrality is one of the humanitarian laws, neutrality. And so we work anywhere and we work with anyone, right? We even find a way to work through governments that are not official governments, because our focus and our intent is improve the life chances of children. And so for people who are here, it depends on what sort of organization you have. If you have a social enterprise and if you have a philanthropy that you're running, you set your own values and you set your own your own tenets that govern how you work, your principles, and so you keep to them. I remember touching on the abortion issue as a Christian, and without getting into a lot of details, that's not an area that I personally support, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. When I first did the work I did around sexual reproductive health and rights a few years ago in Nigeria, yes, of course, it's in Nigeria that someone would say to me, but you can't be a Christian if you're supporting, what program was it at the time? One of the programs was around sexual reproductive health and rights for young people in school, teaching young people around raising awareness around sexual reproductive health and rights. Sex education is what it was. And I really was very keen that children are aware, not age-appropriate information, of course, was what we were. Because if children are not aware, we were having, in the centers that we set up through partners, there were a lot of young people coming in with unplanned pregnancies, and a lot of young people coming in, and we were having to deal with the side effects of what I call it, illegal abortion, right? And so for me, it was quite important that young people are empowered with information to keep themselves safe, to make the decision that's suitable for them. But I remember this professor walked up to me and she said, oh, well, I'm a feminist and yeah, this is what we do, but you're a Christian, and I'm grateful that she recognized I was a Christian, because I wasn't going around announcing it. And you're supporting this work. Surely you cannot be a Christian. And I said to her, oh, that's really, really interesting. Why do you think not? I'm more interested in these children live and have an opportunity to, get to meet Christ at some point than what if they died on the abortion table. But that's not to say it's neither here or there what my personal beliefs are. I work for an organization where neutrality is key, and we see children as whole and not isolated from the ecosystem. We don't do a lot of programs, and we don't do programs that abortion, but we do not say that we're not working with organizations who support abortion. But that's completely different. As an individual, you have the right to choose what you do and where you go. And for me, those are not even the most important things. We work as peacemakers, right? And so we engage with terrorists, right? Which is the bigger sin, or which is the better sin? I don't know if you understand what I mean, because oftentimes Christians bring this down to, oh, this or that. That's fine. Choose the one that aligns with your faith. Choose the one that aligns with your principles, and choose the ones that align. Don't invest your money, because that's what it is. It is actually whatever arms you're giving, whatever time you're giving. Don't invest your time, your money with organizations that are not aligned with your principle, or that you do not support what they do, right? But where I work, we're a neutral organization. Their decisions I've made, they're organizations that have headhunted me, where their principles and their values have not aligned with mine as a Christian, and 100% I have not gone to work for them, no matter how attractive the role was. And yes, how I think it would have brought me into the spaces that I really wanted to be in. But I could not, I didn't even pray before God said, forget it. I couldn't even think about it. So we all know ourselves, even as individuals who work in different, in the marketplace, people who choose the organizations that they work for based on the culture and the principles of those organizations. So it's the same here as well. And then, I hope that shed some light to Laide's question. We also collaborate with organizations, but we do work with them based on shared interests and shared visions. We do what we call we have our ways of working. But trust is essential to collaborate, yes. But oftentimes trust is earned, and you never really know someone until you work with them. And so there are certain organizations we've collaborated with, and when we come to go through a process of vetting who we work with, there's some organizations, there's a star across them, and we're like, no, we're not working with this organization based on this experience. So trust is earned, right? So yes, definitely there should be shared vision, and trust is essential to collaborate. But sometimes you go in not really knowing the organizations or the people until you've had that experience with them.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. One final question, but if you have any question, please put in the chat before Mrs. Aderemi goes today. So the final question is this. Now you've talked about collaboration. A lot of people or organizations want to partner with other organizations. So if we keep saying, oh, collaboration, collaboration, they want to collaborate. And sometimes they don't even know who to reach out to. Sometimes they find the organizations that they want to reach out to. But most times there's radio silence when they reach out. So when people want to go into partnerships, what's the best advice you would give them in terms of reaching out to even get a first audience?
So, thanks, Tolu. This one is not rocket science, and it differs depending on the space, right? So first of all, there's so many ways people reach out via email, phone calls, but the age-old having someone who is able to connect you to someone in the organization remains gold, because that gives you a space to at least present your best foot forward. But then it depends on which organization, and it depends on what audience, right? So yeah, there's the networking sessions that people attend. The event that you held, the Impact Lounge, is really gold. Such spaces are very valuable for people who want to get connected into the sector, to address, to even begin to understand, how do we do this? I heard a lot of people who came to ask me, how do we navigate into this space? And so there are different things that people learn. I was really, even for the organization that I work in, we still often look for connectors, depending on what it is that we want to do. So you will get emails saying, hey, Uju, we met at this event. My organization is trying to do this. And then you point them to the right places. So the first thing would be to do some bits of research, understand who the organization is, who are the key people, go out to networking spaces, find spaces where these organizations are, and it depends on what you're trying to reach them for, and build networks. And also yourself, be a resource to other people as well. There's no sense sitting down at home and then wanting to meet people, or I need to meet this person. You need to put yourself out there. Sometimes it takes bravery, get friends, go out there, go to networking events. Networking is not something that comes natural to me. I feel like it's part of my work. And so I often have to get up and do it. And it was a female leader that I admired a long time ago who I heard that from. She was like, I really hate networking, but it's part of my role. So I have to go out there and show up and then make an effort. And when you meet people, follow up. So I often get to go to large global conferences, and a lot of the people that I meet there, you get an opportunity to meet them. These are people who are very busy, who may not respond to your emails. I'm talking about a long time, a lot when I was starting, it's a little bit different now. But you put yourself out there, and then you go to another event and you see them and you say, hello, take boldness, be bold and courageous. We met at this event, and something will drop at some point. But research, you can't underestimate the power of research. LinkedIn is a good place to go. Find out LinkedIn connection, who is connected to this person that is somehow connected to yourself as well. Find out spaces where they go to. And oftentimes, don't go after the head person. Go after the people who are the advisors, the people who are most the people who will get you the FaceTime or the audience that you need. And I know I'm talking a lot about a bigger organizations, but really small organizations, it's equal. You can apply the same principle. Research, find out who the connectors are, put yourself out there, write emails, cold letters, but always you will find someone who knows someone who knows someone. But again, what you're offering or what you want them for, how valuable is it to them? You've got to put a value to that as well. And it's got to be something that is interesting for them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, if you enjoyed or learned from this session this afternoon, please put one word that describes everything that you've heard, one word, and or what has resonated with you the most in this 1 hour conversation. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. My note is full. I keep learning every day from you. Please put that in the comment. And I don't know if we can take one more question, if anyone has a question, but what has resonated with you the most? What are you taking away from here today? If you've started, what are you going to improve on? And if you've not started, do you think you will start doing good work? So one final word from you before we go. So I have impact. Thank you all. Brilliant conversation, very inspiring. Stick to your purpose and your path. Thank you very much. And also, networking is very important, very, very important. I've met some amazing people networking. I've been invited into rooms that I never thought I could go into because of networking. So, what's one final word or word you're leaving with us today?
I also wanted to say something like this Hangout Café. I've actually learned a lot from it. A lot of the people who have come, I've been able to connect with them outside. I remember 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗹𝗆 when she came here, I learned quite a lot from her, and I was able to connect with her in church. And she and I have developed a relationship where we're able to share networks, each other's networks. So Hangout Cafe is also a really good one. And Tolu, I talked about your Impact Lounge. It was really inspiring. And sometimes you don't always have to go. There are quite a lot of things that happen virtually. You can do virtual connections as well. So I would always say, what's your story and what's driving you? How can it inspire others and how can you pay it forward? So that's what I'd love to leave people with in this International Women's Month. Give to gain. What's your story? Everybody has a story. How can it inspire others and how can you pay it forward when you give, And Tolu, you said something that was absolutely critical. When we hear about a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, I'm really proud of the heritage that my grandmother left for us. And I'm grateful that she did. So what's the legacy that you want to leave? And most of us, as we get to that age, okay, I can see my sister is here. As we get to that age where we're thinking about legacy, what legacy are you building? What do your children, as you said, Tolu, what are your children seeing you do? I said to my son the other day that your allowance, half of this, I said to him, I learned from a Muslim person shared about how they give their children money. They give 1/3 to giving, 1/3 to 1/3 to saving. So I'm trying to practice that with my son. He doesn't always find it really important, but I said to him, you have to learn how to give at this early age, and there's so many avenues where we have access to teach them. So thank you. I'm sorry that the internet was a bit flaws in the beginning. It really threw me off, and a lot of things I wanted to say didn't come across. But I hope it.
No, but we got so much from this. We got a lot from this. Like I said, my note is full. I write a lot, so I've written so much today. But then I think one thing I would like to leave before we end this session today is this: step out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
Because I believe comfort zone is danger zone. A lot of times we have these big dreams, or when I have money, I want to do this or that. But the truth is, do we ever have the kind of money we want to have? Because as much as we keep having, we keep anticipating to have more. So we end up not doing anything. But start doing something today, no matter how small. If you want to help the world, start with one child. If you want to save all the children in the world, start with one child. If you want to help the elderly, start with one. And you find out that as you go, you keep increasing, but not doing anything really is what isn't so great. So I'd like to leave you with that today. And I'd also like to say thank you, Mrs. Aderemi, for joining us. We've thoroughly enjoyed this. Can we please celebrate her? Thank you all for coming. And I'll be looking out for everyone and the good works you'll be doing out there. Have a great day.
Thank you, Tolu. Thank you for sharing your story as well as really inspiring. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.